In 1993, the MGM Grand opened as a palace for the people, 5,000 rooms, $5 blackjack, steak dinners under $5. But today, viral footage of empty floors and skyrocketing fees fuel a single question. Is MGM Grand collapsing? According to the CEO, the truth behind this unraveling is far more shocking than lost crowds and missed jackpots. What really drove Vegas's flagship into crisis, and who's paying the price? The MGM Grand did not simply open its doors, it redefined what Las Vegas could be. With over 5,000 rooms rising above the Strip, the property was a city unto itself. In 1993, this was the world's largest hotel, built on a scale that demanded constant movement, luggage carts rolling through endless hallways, lines at every buffet, the low hum of slot machines echoing day and night. The casino floor stretched further than a football field, bright with neon and alive with the shuffle of cards at every turn. This was not a palace reserved for the elite. The promise was clear: anyone could stay here. Room rates regularly dipped below $50 a night, especially midweek or off-season. Families booked spring breaks for less than the cost of a single Broadway ticket. Blackjack tables with $5 minimums lined the pits, welcoming first-timers and regulars with the same easy nod. Even a steak dinner, complete with all the sides, cost less than $5 at the Grand's coffee shop. A deal that drew crowds as reliably as the slot jackpots. Everything about the MGM Grand was engineered for volume. The business model didn't rely on squeezing a few wealthy guests. It thrived by filling every seat, every room, every stool at the bar. Generous comps flowed freely. Free drinks, buffet vouchers, show tickets handed out with a smile. Parking was free too, and nobody cared if you wore a tuxedo or a t-shirt. The energy was relentless, a true cross-section of America on vacation, drawn by the thrill that luxury could be accessible. Crowds packed the lobby at all hours, drawn by the sense that here, the extraordinary was within reach. The grand scale was both its gamble and its secret weapon. 5,000 rooms meant 5,000 opportunities every night to turn a visitor into a believer. In that era, the casino floor was never quiet, and the dream of Vegas was alive in every blinking light and every roll of the dice. There was a time when the MGM Grand was more than just a place to sleep or gamble. It was a stage where everyone, no matter their bankroll, could play a starring role. The $4.99 steak special became a ritual for night owls and early risers alike. A meal that drew as many locals as tourists, all packed into the coffee shop, swapping stories over baked potatoes and bottomless coffee. This wasn't just about cheap food, it was a ticket to the good life, served on white plates under neon lights, with no velvet rope in sight. On fight nights, the energy reached a fever pitch. Mike Tyson stepped into the ring at the Grand Garden Arena, and the entire city seemed to hold its breath. Celebrities in tailored suits and tourists in souvenir t-shirts filled the same corridors, brushing shoulders on their way to the main event. The crowd's roar spilled out onto the casino floor, where every television was tuned to the broadcast, and even the dealers paused to catch a glimpse between hands. These moments weren't reserved for the elite. They belonged to anyone who could snag a ticket or simply be present for the spectacle. The Grand's lobbies and lounges became gathering places for the unexpected. Movie premieres brought Hollywood to the desert, while championship boxing and concerts turned ordinary weekends into headline events. It wasn't uncommon to see a family from Ohio sharing an elevator with a pop star, or a group of college friends taking selfies under the same golden lion as a world-famous athlete. The boundaries blurred here. Everyone was part of the story, whether they spent $5 on a blackjack hand or $5,000 on a suite. This was the golden promise of the MGM Grand, a place where the extraordinary felt accessible and where the memories made were as valuable as any jackpot. The laughter from the steakhouse, the electric anticipation before a fight, the late-night buzz of strangers becoming friends. These were the moments that defined Old Vegas for a generation. They lingered long after the last hand was dealt, woven into the legend of a casino that once made everyone feel like they belonged. Jim Murren took the helm at MGM Resorts in 2008, inheriting a property famous for its crowds and democratic energy. For years, the numbers told a simple story. More guests meant more profit. But behind closed doors, the calculus began to change. As Wall Street demanded higher margins and the cost of running a mega resort soared, Murren and his team turned to a new playbook. The language shifted from volume to value. In 2017, Murren addressed investors with a phrase that would echo through every department. The real upside is in high-value guests and experiences. We prioritize margin over mass. This wasn't just talk. Internal documents, board minutes, and earnings calls from the late 2010s reveal a deliberate campaign to attract guests who would spend more even if fewer came through the doors. Resort fees, once unthinkable, became standard. Paid parking rolled out in 2016, justified as a response to changing guest expectations. The old comp system was quietly gutted, replaced by a loyalty program that rewarded only the biggest spenders. Each move was explained in the same clinical terms: premiumization, yield management, optimizing guest mix. Bill Hornbuckle, who stepped into the CEO role in 2020, doubled down. On an October 2025 earnings call, he described MGM's strategic focus on premium, market-leading integrated resort operations. The subtext was clear. The era of the $5 blackjack table and the $50 room was over. Instead, executives spoke of pricing discipline and operational scale, terms that, in practice, meant raising minimums, slashing comps, and chasing luxury at the expense of accessibility. The company's own CFO, Jonathan Halkyard, put it bluntly: our strategic focus on premium, market-leading integrated resort operations drove the decision to sell lower-margin operations. Nowhere in the transcripts is there an outright admission of abandoning the middle-class guest. But the pattern is unmistakable. Every policy lever, every public statement, every management incentive pointed in the same direction: fewer guests, higher spend, and a property remade for the top end of the market. The language grew colder, more remote, a far cry from the open-armed welcome that once defined the MGM Grand. The first domino fell in 2016 when MGM Grand began charging for parking, a move that sent shockwaves through longtime guests. For decades, free parking had been as much a part of Vegas as neon and dice. Now, a simple overnight stay meant an extra $20 to $25 tacked onto the bill. The justification from executives was clinical: changing guest expectations. But for many, it felt more like a velvet rope quietly drawn across the city's front door. Resort fees soon followed. What started as a modest add-on, $15 a night, buried in the fine print, ballooned to over $55 by 2025. These charges, unavoidable and rarely advertised up front, turned a $200 room into a $270 surprise. The fee covered amenities that once came standard: Wi-Fi, gym access, even the right to check in early or leave a little late. Each year, the list of what was included shrank, while the fee itself grew. Table minimums, once the great equalizer, climbed just as quickly. The $5 blackjack tables that lined the pits in the 90s gave way to $25 and $50 minimums, even on slow nights. For casual players, the message was unmistakable: play big or play elsewhere. The same logic spread to the bars. Cocktails that once cost $8 now rang up at $30, and complimentary drinks for players became a rare perk reserved for the highest spenders. Even the rewards program was rebuilt from the ground up. MGM Rewards, once a ladder anyone could climb, became a fortress. Mid-tier guests saw their points slashed, comps evaporate, and benefits reserved for those willing to drop thousands in a single weekend. Every policy was justified in the language of yield management and premium experience. But the effect was plain at the ground level. A casino designed for crowds now pricing out the very people who once filled its halls. At 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, the main casino pit at MGM Grand sits in silence. The tables are open, but the chairs are empty. Dealers stand by, shuffling cards for no one, glancing at the clock as minutes drag on. A veteran cocktail server, 18 years on the floor, describes her new routine: fewer shifts, fewer tips, and sometimes an entire evening without a single order before midnight. She remembers when it took a wait list to get a table on a weeknight. Now she waits for a guest, any guest, to appear. The numbers confirm what the staff already knows. In the third quarter of 2025, MGM Grand's occupancy rate dropped to 89%, down from 94% just a year earlier. That means nearly 300 rooms sit empty each night. Rooms that, in the past, would have been filled by families, conventioneers, or budget travelers. Room revenue fell by 11% year over year. The casino's own filings show a 7% cut in full-time staff, with many long-time employees seeing their hours slashed or positions eliminated entirely. The Culinary Workers Union has called out these reductions as a direct blow to the people who kept the property running during its busiest years. The ghost floor phenomenon isn't just a social media rumor. Dealers and pit bosses describe entire sections of the gaming floor closed for days at a time, especially midweek. The Tuesday-Saturday gap is now a chasm. Weekends still bring a pulse of life, but the rest of the week, the casino feels abandoned. A tour operator who once filled buses with eager visitors now brings only a handful each month. For the first time in decades, the Grand's massive scale is a liability instead of a strength. The middle, the steady current of guests who once made the place hum, has vanished, leaving behind empty chairs and a growing sense of unease among those who remain. The numbers are cold, but the faces behind them tell the real story, a property built for crowds now haunted by the absence of its people. High-stakes gamblers, the very guests MGM Grand tried to court, have been quietly slipping away. For the true whales, there's no shortage of better options, just a short drive or flight away. Wynn and Area offer newer suites, more personalized service, and an atmosphere that feels exclusive by design. Overseas, Macau and Singapore pull in international VIPs with offers the Grand can't match. Private jet arrivals, sky-high credit lines, and the latest in luxury gaming. Even on the Strip, the Grand's 1990s bones show their age next to the polished marble of its rivals. Despite millions spent on room remodels, the casino floor and common spaces still echo with the past, not the future. The irony runs deeper. As MGM Grand raised the bar for entry, it also opened a side door, BetMGM. The company's own online platform siphons off players who once filled the casino floor, offering digital slots and table games from the comfort of home. For many, the convenience and constant promotions of online betting are simply too good to pass up. Industry analysts estimate that 3 to 7% of what used to be live casino revenue now migrates to BetMGM each year. Instead of capturing a new breed of high roller, the Grand finds itself cannibalized by its own technology. The numbers don't lie. VIP volume at MGM Grand has dropped below pre-pandemic levels, while Wynn and Resorts World report stronger, high-end play. Junket logs and private jet arrivals confirm the shift. Meanwhile, the property's scale, those 5,000 rooms, those endless gaming pits, can't be filled by exclusivity alone. The math just doesn't work. There simply aren't enough ultra-wealthy guests to fill the void left by the middle. The strategy, once pitched as future-proof, now looks like a blueprint for empty hallways and silent tables. Market forces, not just management, have delivered the verdict. The Grand tried to reinvent itself as a luxury fortress, but found itself outmaneuvered by competitors and outpaced by its own digital shadow. The very guests it chased had already moved on. Resorts World threw out the rulebook in May 2024, scrapping resort fees for direct bookings while most of the Strip clung to hidden charges. The response was immediate. Direct reservations surged, and weekend occupancy shot up by nearly 10 percentage points. Industry analysts watched closely as guest satisfaction scores climbed and reviews praised the return of honest pricing. For a brief moment, the newest mega resort in Las Vegas looked more like the city's past than its present. Busy, accessible, and alive with guests who felt welcome again. 90 minutes south, Laughlin's casinos stayed the course. No fee hikes, no velvet ropes, just cheap rooms and $5 tables. The result? Visitor numbers soared by 17% between 2023 and 2024, even as the Strip's own traffic fell by 6%. While MGM Grand and its rivals gambled on exclusivity, Laughlin doubled down on the basics. Free parking, friendly comps, and a crowd that still believes in the old Vegas promise. The story was the same on Fremont Street, where properties like the Golden Nugget and Circa kept table minimums low and occupancy rising. Wall Street took notice. On August 1st, 2025, Moody's revised MGM Resorts' credit outlook to negative, warning that the company's strategic pivot toward premiumization had failed to deliver improved profitability. The report cited declining visitation, weakening revenue, and a leverage ratio stuck above 5 times EBITDA. The verdict was blunt. MGM's Las Vegas exposure had become a liability, and the premium strategy wasn't filling the gap. As competitors grew by welcoming the middle, MGM faced the risk of a downgrade, proof that the market rewards accessibility, not arrogance. The alarm bells weren't coming from social media anymore. They were ringing from the very institutions that once bankrolled the boom. In 2025, MGM Grand's occupancy rate fell to 89%, its lowest since 2012, as documented in quarterly SEC filings. This marks a sharp reversal from its 1993 opening, when more than 5,000 rooms and $5 tables welcomed crowds seeking affordable luxury. The evidence shows a direct link between leadership's premiumization strategy, publicly stated by CEOs Jim Murren and Bill Hornbuckle, and the introduction of $55 resort fees, paid parking, and higher table minimums. As a result, long-time employees faced reduced hours, and the casino reported a 7% staff cut. Competing properties that kept prices accessible, like Laughlin's casinos, saw visitor growth of 17% during the same period. MGM Grand's executives have not fully addressed how they plan to reverse these losses or regain trust. The facts are clear. Abandoning the middle-class customer undermined the property's foundation. The MGM Grand story stands as a caution for the entire Las Vegas industry. When you build on volume, you can't survive by chasing only the elite.